The United States swiftly moves to retaliate against Iran in the aftermath of a devastating attack in Jordan, with tensions soaring following the recent assault on a U.S. base in Syria, which claimed the lives of 3 soldiers and left over 40 others wounded. The Biden administration has wasted no time in signaling its intent for regional counteraction. The escalation reached a boiling point when pro-Iranian armed groups targeted a U.S.-controlled military base near the Omar oil field in Syria's Deir ez-Zor region, deploying 3 drones in a brazen act of aggression. This latest assault marks the 165th attack on U.S. military installations in Iraq and Syria, pushing the U.S. administration to initiate the long-anticipated heavy bombing campaign in the region. Tonight, the skies over the Middle East lit up as the U.S. military, in coordination with its allies, launched a relentless bombardment against Iranian-backed aggressor groups. President Biden himself kicked off this massive operation, underscoring the gravity of the situation. The Pentagon wasted no time in announcing a series of air and missile strikes targeting Iranian-armed proxy forces across Iraq and Syria. In a special update from U.S. Central Command, it's revealed that the retaliatory strikes were conducted with precision, utilizing a variety of aircraft including long-range bombers. Among these formidable warplanes were the legendary B-52, B-2, and the fearsome B-1 stealth bombers, showcasing America's formidable aerial might. The scene was set as B-1 bombers took off from Lake and Heath Air Base in Britain, embarking on a mission bound for the Middle East. Simultaneously, 3 B-52s were deployed to bases in Israel, reinforcing the message of unwavering resolve. These aerial giants spearheaded the onslaught against the H's force of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps and its affiliated groups, delivering punishing blows in Iraq and Syria. The aftermath of the U.S. airstrikes against armed groups in Iraq and Syria reverberated across the region, sending shockwaves through the ranks of those targeted. U.S. Central Command revealed that the airstrikes, employing over 85 precision munitions, exceeded all expectations in their severity. These precision strikes meticulously targeted over 85 facilities, including command and control centers, intelligence hubs, rocket and missile stockpiles, drone depots, and logistics and munition supply chain facilities. These crucial assets, vital for militias and their Revolutionary Guard sponsors to orchestrate attacks against U.S. and coalition forces, bore the brunt of the onslaught. In total, 8 outposts of pro-Iranian armed groups were obliterated, with 6 armed members meeting their demise during the strikes. As regional sources continued to provide updates, the extent of the devastation became clearer. The UK-based observatory reported that U.S. Air Force warplanes and helicopters engaged in the operation, conducting 4 raids on Iranian-backed groups' hideouts in the eastern province of Deir ez-Zor. 3 of these strikes targeted al-Madin and 1 targeted al-Bukamal, near the Iraqi border. These critical raids resulted in the reported deaths of several pro-Iranian operatives and the destruction of dozens of military munitions. However, the full scale of the attacks remains difficult to ascertain at the moment. The areas where the airstrikes occurred have become perilous territories for pro-Iranian armed forces and agents. As the dust settles, the toll of casualties is expected to climb in the coming hours. Official statements from U.S. authorities have begun to emerge, marking this massive airstrike as the first retaliatory step following the drone strikes against the U.S. base in Syria. These statements, emanating from the highest levels of the U.S. government, underscore the seriousness with which the U.S. regards threats to its interests and safety of its personnel. As tensions escalate and the region braces for further developments, the repercussions of these airstrikes are sure to resonate for days to come. President Joe Biden, in a resolute statement, affirmed that the strikes in Iraq and Syria, which decimated over 85 targets and claimed the lives of 6 pro-Iranian agents, constituted the initial U.S. response. He emphasized that such counterattacks had commenced on this day, underscoring America's unwavering commitment to retaliating against those who dare to target U.S. military forces in the Middle East. The U.S. Department of Defense echoed these sentiments, labeling the airstrikes in Iraq and Syria as unprecedented. The Pentagon indicated that these staggering aerial assaults marked only the beginning of a sustained campaign. The prospect of continued bombardments loomed large, signaling a cause for concern within Iran's corridors of power. Iran, caught off guard by the ferocity of the U.S. response, had anticipated a more tempered reaction from Washington amid ongoing attacks on U.S. bases in Syria and Iraq. Iran's strategy of sowing confusion regarding its regional intentions backfired spectacularly as the White House asserted its military might with precision. While some Iranian officials issued bellicose rhetoric, others attempted to distance Iran from the actions of armed forces in the region. However, the swift and simultaneous demonstrations of U.S. military power shattered any illusion of Iranian influence. Key figures within U.S. defense circles had hinted at such decisive action in Iraq and Syria even before the attacks. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin had previously pledged a comprehensive response against pro-Iranian armed groups in the Middle East. Following this announcement, speculation ran rife regarding the White House's next move. Analysts pondered the possibility of U.S. strikes extending to Iran itself, heightening tensions in an already volatile region. Even as President Biden and his aides vowed retaliation, they reiterated Washington's reluctance for war with Iran or broader conflict in the region. The question arises, will the U.S. resume airstrikes against pro-Iranian targets in Iraq and Syria in the future? The answer seems almost certain, as by the end of this weekend, U.S. airstrikes to dismantle pro-Iranian armed groups in Iraq and Syria are likely to continue, given regional preparations and the extent of U.S. retaliatory plans. However, the U.S. has another front to contend with: the Red Sea, a vital center of global trade. The Houthi rebels in Yemen remain a persistent threat in the region. Iran may seek to empower the Houthis once again to disrupt U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria. This could manifest in renewed Houthi attacks on ships passing through the Gulf of Aden and Bab al-Mandeb in the Red Sea. Intelligence suggests Iran has reconnaissance ships in the Red Sea, such as the Al-Bors, allegedly providing crucial intelligence to the Houthis. If the Houthis manage to draw U.S. attention in the Red Sea and disrupt Washington's retaliatory plans, it could offer pro-Iranian proxy forces in Iraq and Syria an opportunity to regroup and prepare for further attacks against the United States. During this intricate equation, finding a way forward becomes paramount. The challenge lies in navigating the complex dynamics of regional tensions while mitigating the risk of escalation. It requires strategic foresight, diplomacy, and a concerted effort to address the root causes of conflict in the region. As events unfold, the path to resolution remains elusive, but dialogue and cooperation offer the best chance for de-escalation and lasting peace. Biden's Middle East strategy must address the fallout from recent airstrikes in Iraq and Syria, impacting Iran significantly. With Iranian-backed proxies laying low, the U.S. should bolster its presence in Iraq and Syria, where it currently has 900 troops and 2,500 troops respectively. Iran, in response, is deploying armed proxy forces aligned with its axis of resistance strategy, aiming to pressure the U.S. and Israel. This involves using groups like the Houthis and Hamas to challenge U.S. forces and weaken Israel's influence. While the U.S. formed Operation Welfare Guard to deter Houthi provocations in the Red Sea, this may only be a temporary solution until Iran retaliates. Potential responses could include missile strikes on U.S. and allied warships or attacks on Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Arab states are wary of further escalation, but the U.S. has the capability to swiftly counter Houthi aggression by deploying additional military assets to the region. This proactive approach would enable the U.S. to expand its retaliatory campaign if necessary, striking targets in Syria or targeting Iranian naval assets. While a more assertive U.S. policy may not immediately de-escalate tensions, it could effectively counter Iranian aggression in the region. By eliminating Iran's first strike capabilities and bolstering our own forces, we can ensure stability and security in the region. But what do you think? How should the U.S. navigate these complex geopolitical waters? Share your thoughts in the comments below.